It was a brick, still layered with the pitted crust of mortar and chipped on one corner. Thrown with reckless anger, the brick hit dead center, collapsing the grocery's large picture window. The shattering glass startled Michael awake some time after 2 a.m. He had been in the middle of a dream, which allowed him to imagine, if for only a couple of fleeting seconds, that he was still back in the comfort of his old bedroom in Brooklyn. Michael's torso tensed and he jerked upright. A sour knot formed in the pit of his stomach at the disquieting realization that the crash that had woken him was the storefront window, the window directly beneath his bedroom. Michael heard muffled hoots and shouts, followed by the sound of skidding tires as a car sped away. During an oppressive mid-June heatwave and a week after the Six-Day War, Michael's father had taken ownership of the grocery in Queens Village and moved his family from their Brooklyn neighborhood, where their native Arabic was spoken and everyone was in some way related to each other, if not by blood, then by heritage and community. Palestine, the country that Michael's parents had emigrated from several years before his birth, was now occupied. And in his upstairs apartment bedroom, Michael was just starting to get comfortable in his new surroundings, just beginning to learn how to sleep again. Michael's father, thick, black-haired, disheveled, jumped out of bed and into his pants and flew down the stairs. Michael trailed after him, but as he took his first step out of their apartment door, his mother, who had hesitated at first, grabbed his arm for balance. As they carefully navigated the narrow staircase, her firm grip tugged on Michael, slowing him, holding him back, as if she didn't want to let him go. Michael's mother had never spoken about her reluctance to embrace what her husband considered his stake in their future. But Michael, an only child, intuitively knew his mother's emotional undercurrents. He often understood his mother's position on things not by what she said, which was very little on most topics, but by the subtle shades of quiet she slipped into. By measuring the depth and weight of her introspection, he would know when to be concerned. When his father had announced his purchase of the store, Michael felt her unspoken reluctance by her immediate retreat, but he couldn't discern whether it stemmed from general caution or regret over their savings being sunk into a new business. Perhaps she had received an unsolicited warning from her aunt, who read prognostications from the intricate swirls at the bottom of her Arabic coffee cup, which Michael believed his mother wouldn't heed anyway. But as time progressed, whatever it was that was causing her reticence seemed to dissolve, and she moved forward with a renewed acceptance. After all, how could she argue with a husband whose goal was to better their lives? Michael had forgotten her initial reaction until this moment. As they neared the bottom of the stairs, he turned to look up at her. Her eyes widened, and she gave him a slight nod, her best effort at reassuring him. But her small hand nervously clutched his arm, speaking to the contrary. She remained stoic, so as not to betray how she really felt. But at 15, her son knew better. The Schaefer light, which hung in the window by 2 thin wires, was still swinging, unbroken by the impact. The shattered window, jagged edges glistening under the swaying of the fluorescent light, reinforced Michael's sense of exposure. He stood frozen, staring at the black, gaping hole, until his father called out, "Come help!" While Michael busied himself sweeping up shards of glass from behind the counter, he spotted a large piece wedged under the worn butcher block that held the cash register. He knelt down awkwardly, and as he stretched an unsteady hand out to reach for it, he caught the sharp edge and sliced his index finger open. Blood oozed to the surface in a thick line that defined the length of the gash. As he stood up and moved his hand to examine the damage, a bright red drop spilled onto the floor and was swallowed up by the porous wood. Michael stuck his finger in his mouth, The warm blood tasted sweet as he gently wrapped his tongue around the cut, and as he took that moment to nurse his finger, his nerves let go, and he suddenly felt tired, faint. This feeling lasted as long as it took for his mother to splash alcohol over the cut and examine it for slivers of glass.